Hello. Today, this video blog is going to be about the risks associated with going through with this transplant procedure, being the donor, the risks associated with the surgery. It would be both medical risks and then social risks, financial risks. So we'll just take a look at those today. I have a sheet that I'm going to be referring to from time to time. It's the Living Organ Donor's Liver Transplant Manual. It gives a really straightforward, cut and dry account of the medical risks that are involved. Although it is a little outdated. When this package was put out, there was about 450 donors surgery procedures that had been done, and when I was talking to the doctors down in Toronto, they told me that they've now done over 600 of these surgeries. So I'll just read off some of the risks. The percentages are going to be off a little bit. They'll be, in actuality, they would be lower than the risks that are on here because this package is a little outdated, but this will just give a basic idea of what the risks involved are. So I'll start off with the package and the physical risks associated with the surgery. So the biggest risk, obviously, is a risk of death. There's a chance that you could die during the surgery. It's a 0.02% chance of that you could actually die during the surgery. I know in Toronto there has never been a death associated with liver transplant surgery for the donor. So the odds are, stacked well in your favor that you're not going to die during it, which is nice because I enjoy life. Let's see. So that's sort of the main one. 40% of liver donors do experience a complication of some kind. Doesn't mean it's going to be severe, but the chances are pretty good that you'll experience some kind of side effect, as it were, of this surgery. So I'll just read a little bit here of what it is. You can have an adverse reaction to the anesthesia. Let's see. The decision to abandon the surgery after the incision's been made. So basically, I've been going through all these tests to make sure that my anatomy is compatible with donating, but there's a chance that when they open me up, assuming I get approved, if they open me up, they might find in 4% of cases that the anatomy isn't what they expected, so it's not a compatible match, in which case they would just have to sew you back up, and you would be going through your recovery procedure. It wouldn't be as long, but it's still lengthy considering that the surgery was aborted. There's a chance of stroke, heart attack, blood clot in the legs or lung, fluid around the lung, fluid retention, mild or severe infections, other adverse effects of a blood transfusion if you need a blood transfusion, which does happen sometimes in these cases because they're cutting open your liver, and if you do bleed a lot during this process, then you will require a transfusion. It could be issues with bile leakage, bile duct damage and repair. Could be some nerve damage around the incision. Then, let's see. There's a bunch of post-operative ones that, things that could come up after the surgery itself. And that could be bleeding, internal bleeding, which will require sort of another surgery in order to get that under control. Bile leaks, blood clots could form afterwards if you don't follow the proper exercise routine, and sometimes it might happen anyways. It's quite rare, but it's possible. And then one of the emotional risks during the surgery is that if you go through the surgery and you make it through completely healthy, you don't have any side effects, but there's a relatively high chance compared to the surgery that I'd be going through that there would be a very strong side effect or a bad side effect for the person who's receiving the organ. So one thing they the doctors and all the people I've talked to have been telling me is, you have to be prepared for the fact that you may go through with a donor procedure and the person who receives your organ might not make it. They might die. And that's an emotional risk, because I think it would be rather difficult going through this whole procedure and then at the end finding out that the person that you were donating to in fact didn't make it. That would be very difficult for some people. I can see how that would be, emotionally difficult. So social risks are more associated with how everybody that reacts to you going through for the surgery, the effects of the surgery on the people you love. They're obviously, a lot of the people are going to be worried if you decide to go through with living donor procedure, because you're putting yourself directly in the line of fire, so to speak, for a whole bunch of different things that are very ill to your health. And the surgery itself is not going to help you get better. It's not going to improve your quality of life, but there is a lot of risk associated with, it decreasing your quality of life. So social risks, could be anything from family members being, violently opposed to it, not wanting to talk about it, not acknowledging the fact that this is something you want to do, which of course brings up emotional issues as well. This is something that I've experienced a little bit so far in my process of getting the testing done in this decision. The other aspect is the financial risks involved, and there are actually quite a lot of financial risks involved, because you're going for major surgery, you're having to take maybe up to 4 months off of work, depending on whether or not you have complications and how well your body is to heal from the trauma. You're going to be out of work. You're going to have to get unemployment or have a savings of some kind. In Canada, if you go for employment insurance, the sickness leave, it's 55% of your income is what they will put out for it. In my case, that covers about 3/4 of my rent alone, which means that in order for me to do this surgery, I'm going to have to fundraise to raise money to cover my cost of living. It's kind of an interesting position to be in, going out of your way to try and do something to help another person, but ultimately you're going to have to face some type of financial hardship if you're in a position where you don't have a lot of savings, or if you don't have a job that would cover it, or if you don't make enough money every month for the 55% that EI would be paying out to cover your cost of living. So I'm going to have to be fundraising something like $450 a month in order to cover my basic cost of living, which is my rent, utilities, and food. There are medication costs that are associated with it. I'm trying to figure out if there's a drug plan or something that could swing that. I know that there is help through the hospital for medication. The other one that I had to bring up, just because this is a very real possibility, is that it's entirely possible that your employer might simply not want to be a part of this. In my case, I'm looking at taking between, say, 6 and 12 weeks, depending on what the recovery is like, off of work. And initially, when I brought this up with my boss, she was very much she expressed the how do you put it? She was okay with the surgery, and we had a discussion around what would happen, that I would be off work for quite a while. I've tried to book my surgery around the busy schedule at work. It's a tourist town, so we do a lot of our business in the summertime. So we did have a discussion about that, and so that was several weeks ago, and then I progressed sort of working my testing and working the whole donation process around my work so that it would impact it as little as possible. I had talked to some of the social workers down at the hospital, and the gentleman I spoke to talked about employers, and that was really asking if I was sure that this was something that she was willing to do. I was under the assumption that it was. When I came back to work, I found out that that was in fact not that the understanding that we had come to. It was actually not an understanding. So I'm in the position now where if I do go for the surgery, my hours when I'm recovered will not be guaranteed. So I'm now I'm in the position now where I'm needing to choose between doing the surgery and, or having a certainty of having a job. Obviously, coming out of surgery, even when I'm able to go back to work on modified duty, I would not at that point be fit or capable of going and looking for a completely new job if I don't have a job when I come out. So this is something that I think is going to come up a lot for anybody who's looking at doing the living donation. Because this is a voluntary surgery, people tend to take it a little bit lighter than if this was me getting a transplant or if it was me donating to a family member. There's a little bit more understanding around that, but the anonymous donation process I've found has been different in the way people react to it. The reaction is generally that, why would you do this? Because, you don't know this person. You don't have to do this surgery. And in this case, this attitude really does can impact you greatly, your ability to support yourself and continue your life after the surgery is done. So in my case, I am planning on going forward with the surgery regardless of what my employer says to me one way or the other, because it's something I feel I have to do. But it just means that there's a new level of uncertainty around the surgery that I'll have to address. The one thing to note, at least in Canada, is that because it is a voluntary surgery, the employer does not have to give you sick leave. They don't have to sign your record of employment marking down that you're being temporarily let go because of illness. Obviously, it helps if you want to get EI for a medical purpose. They have to put that in there, but they don't have to do that in this case. And in my case, my boss immediately brought up that this was a voluntary surgery and that she in fact didn't have to do that, which was, I will admit, was very disappointing for me. I had thought that we were sort of on the same wavelength with that, but turns out that we weren't. So I'm going to move forward with it, and we'll see where this goes. I'm hoping that perhaps she'll reconsider. At the end of the day, if my doing this surgery means that I won't have a job, then that's something I'm going to have to consider carefully and plan for, because it's obviously I'm going to have a job to pay the rent after the surgery's done. So yeah, that's probably the largest financial risk that I've come across so far is actually losing your job over something like this. Which, if anybody has a really good paying job, that would be a big issue. I've been working for this business for 2.5 years now. And it's not what I would particularly term as a career, right? It's nearly minimum wage, but it's still my means of making rent. So there are going to be very significant risks in terms of financial for this. And I think that's pretty much it. There are other risks which I haven't covered, mostly because I've been rambling on about financial risks, because that's the one that's sort of sitting at the front of my mind right now, trying to figure out. But yeah, there are significant risks involved. This is on par with open heart surgery in terms of the risks that are involved, the percentages that are involved when you're dealing with this. So it is something that everybody really, before you consider doing it, you really have to consider that you are, stepping into the line of fire, at least for the liver donation. The kidney ones, as far as I'm aware, is not as risky. The incisions aren't as big. They're not having to shift a lot of your organs around like they do when they're trying to get at the liver. And generally speaking, it's all around quicker healing time and safer process. I'm really not sure about intestinal donation or lung donation, things like that. Yeah, so those are the risks involved. This is kind of like a doom and gloom blog, but it's one that I think everybody who's considering it really needs to know. I know that the one thing that 2 of the surgeons told me when I was down there is that they really don't like doing living donor transplants because, a big part of their job, or sort of the code of their job, is to perform surgeries that make people better. And in the case of a living donor, you're taking a perfectly healthy person and making them unwell so that you can hopefully make another person well and have a recovery for the person who's doing the donation. So in a perfect world, the deceased donations would be enough to cover all of the needs of the people who are waiting on these waiting lists. But the reality is that that's not the case. So they're really leery about doing it because they're taking a healthy person and putting them in great risk. But yeah, so I mean, considering all the risks is something I still feel I can go forward with. I'm comfortable with all of the risks so far, whether they're physical or financial, one way or another. In terms of finances, I would make things work, and I think I'm looking forward to this experience in many ways because it's something I've never done before, and it's something I think a lot of people need to be aware of, not just the living donor, living donation, but deceased donation as well, and the vast need that we have for organs, and that this need isn't being met, and people are dying waiting for them. So, as always, I encourage everybody to go to Trillium website. Who lives in Ontario, check it out. If you live in another country, Google, organ donation for your country, and I'm sure you'll come up with lots of programs, registrations for deceased donations, information for living donations. And yeah, I encourage that a lot. In many cases, you'll be able to find accounts or videos from people who are either waiting or have gone through the process that can help you make your decision as to whether or not this is something you want to do. And I hope everybody has a good day, and I'll talk to you later.